A very good morning. Just past 8 by the clock. We are back again with another edition of Breakfast News. Over the next 60 minutes, this is your power-packed morning launcher as we kickstart the day with all the happenings from the world of politics, business, sports and entertainment. Remember, we cut all the noise and bring you news as it happens on Ground Zero. I'm Anil Thomas. With me to take you through the next 60 minutes is my co-anchor Preeti.
Thank you, Anil. Good morning and a warm morning to all of you. It's a beautiful Wednesday morning and we're back once again with a fresh edition of Breakfast News. Enough to keep you engaged for the next 1 hour. We'll first begin with the headlines.
G7 leaders, EU, NATO, United Nations agree to stand united against Taliban, say Afghanistan must never again become a safe haven for terrorism, nor a source of terrorist attacks on others. UN Human Rights Council holds special session on Afghanistan, calls for a dedicated mechanism to closely monitor the human rights situation in Afghanistan.
US President Joe Biden refuses to extend Afghanistan evacuation deadline but hints at contingency plans, says Taliban's actions would be judged while taking steps to move forward in response.
Three copies of the Holy Scripture Sri Guru Granth Sahib's reach India. Atmosphere of joy in the Gurudwaras and whole country.
Union Minister and BJP leader Narayan Rane granted bail by a Mahad magistrate. Case registered against Rane in connection with his alleged statement against Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray. Court put some conditions while granting bail.
India's first mRNA-based COVID vaccine found to be safe, given nod for phase 2 and 3 trials. India's cumulative COVID-19 vaccination coverage crosses 59 crore 47 lakh. Health Ministry's eSanjeevani initiative completes 1 crore consultations.
India to play against England in Leeds. India gained psychological edge by winning the second test against England, lead with 1-0 in the 5-match series.
And day one of the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics to witness Indian athletes live in action in 2 table tennis events. Sonam Patel in action in women's singles class 3, while Bhavani Patel in women's singles class 4. Well, those were the headlines at the top of the hour. Now for the stories in detail, starting first up with a high-level G7 talks.
Yes, the leaders of the group of 7 nations called for calm and restraint to ensure the safety and security of vulnerable Afghan and international citizens and also the prevention of a humanitarian crisis. Chairing the virtual emergency G7 leaders meeting in London on Tuesday, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said that G7 had agreed with the plan to deal with the Taliban, with their #1 condition being that militants must allow safe passage to Afghans wanting to leave the country even after an August 31st deadline. G7 leaders and heads of the European Union, the United Nations and NATO met virtually to discuss the unfolding situation in Afghanistan.
Got together the leading Western powers and agreed not just a joint approach to dealing with the evacuation, but also a roadmap for the way in which we're going to engage with the Taliban, as it probably will be a Taliban government in Kabul. And the #1 condition we're setting as G7 is that they've got to guarantee right the way through August the 31st and beyond safe passage for those who want to come out. Now, some of them will say that they don't accept that, and some of them, I hope, will see the sense of that, because the G7 has very considerable leverage, economic, diplomatic, and political.
Well, the leaders of the Group of Seven Nations have said that Taliban will be held accountable on terrorism and human rights. The United Kingdom Prime Minister Boris Johnson urged the member countries to continue to stand by the Afghan people and step up support for refugees and increase humanitarian aid. Boris Johnson further went on to say that huge leverage which the G7 could yield over the Taliban after it seized control of the country just over a week ago included withholding substantial funds.
We want to help with the humanitarian crisis, the difficulties that people in Afghanistan, people fleeing Afghanistan are going to experience. But when it comes to engaging with the Taliban and engaging with the government in Afghanistan, whatever its exact composition, the G7 has huge leverage. And today, the G7 agreed, we brought them together, and they agreed a roadmap for future engagement with the Taliban. So that, if those huge funds are going to be unfrozen eventually for use by the government and people of Afghanistan, then what we're saying is Afghanistan can't lurch back into becoming a breeding ground of terror. Afghanistan can't become a narco state. Girls have got to be educated up to the age of 18 and so on.
Well, for more on the story, we've got Meghna standing by to give us the latest, especially on the G7 meeting that took place. Meghna, good morning. Meghna, first things, looking at the way, Joe Biden went about, addressing the G7 leaders, is there a sense that, Biden gave the sooner we finish, the better it is? And, let's not look at extensions and possibilities of, getting more deadlines. As 31st August deadline, very much, the marker that Biden still sticks to.
Yes, first in that matter, Anil, we see that there are thousands of people that have already been evacuated, but there are still, as we get to know from sources and we get to know from the videos and pictures, there are still thousands stranded and thousands of them want to leave from Kabul. But so definitely this is going to be one aspect that is to be looked into. That if we said, if we actually want to complete the time frame of evacuation by the 31st of August, how is it going to be possible? Are more military aircraft to be flown in there? About 9 to 10 US military aircraft are flowing in every day, and even more than that. So, is the frequency going to increase? Are more flights going to be there? More military planes going to be sent there so that more evacuation can take place? But when we also see that, when we talk about the G7 countries, the G7 countries, major 3 to 4 points have been stated. The first one is that if Taliban should not be using its, the land of Afghanistan for terror activities, will be held accountable if it does so, and also not to terrorize the neighboring land, the region for that matter. First. Second is that it should allow the safe passage of people who want to leave Afghanistan, be it till 31st August or beyond 31st of August. The third is obviously the matter of the rehabilitation of the refugee crisis that is coming up, and we can see when more people will start coming in, the more people will be evacuated, the refugee crisis can become a bigger thing to handle. Fourth is the humanitarian crisis that is continuously unfolding, and India has also stated in the UNHRC that the situation that there is no food, there's a huge shortage of food for the people who have been internally displaced. There's shortage of medical aid. There is shortage, people do not have shelter there. They are living under terror. So this kind of humanitarian crisis. So these are the major 4 points, which have been put forth in the G7 statement as well. Besides that, we just showed the video message, what Boris Johnson spoke. He spoke that there might just be a Taliban government there in Afghanistan, and but the situation thing is that they should allow the safe passage for the people who want to leave Afghanistan, and that has also been reiterated.
All right, Meghna, given the way Taliban has, has taken control of the reins in Afghanistan. How binding are these, or for that matter, how significant are these discussions that are happening on the unfolding situation in Afghanistan, and what is your evaluation of how would Taliban, respond, or for that matter, would it bind by what all has been put forth by these discussions?
For that matter, when we had seen the first press conference by the Taliban, it actually said what the world wanted to hear. But the reality on the ground is very different. So that's what also has been told by a number of world leaders, that we will not be judging Taliban by its words, but we'll be judging Taliban by the actions, by its actions on the ground. Now, also for that matter, these kind of meetings and these kind of, discussions on these platforms, be it the G7, be it the NATO, be it, other platforms, international platforms for that matter, be it the UNHRC or UNSC. So this also, creates an impact in the matter that, as Boris Johnson has said, that we are G7 countries. We have got, power of economy. We have got more power, and we can. So that just can emphasize on that how much impact, if Taliban does not abide by, what is being asked with them, does not reach an agreement of the safe passage to people who want to leave Afghanistan, they might, obviously they do not still have any kind of legitimacy, but, getting a legitimacy would become hard for them. Obviously, we also know that, that there can be an economic crisis also unfolding there in Afghanistan, which has, almost started, besides that, the kind of humanitarian crisis. So there are several aspects to this on which these international platforms can create pressure there and, reach an agreement with the Taliban to, first priority to repatriate the citizens.
Okay,
I said also in the G7 statement, Anil, just, putting one more point here, that the people there, the humanitarian aid, who are giving the humanitarian aid, their protection is also one important thing, and
okay,
people who are giving humanitarian aid, the people who need humanitarian aid there, all of that is also at stake if the Taliban does not actually abide by or get into any agreement for the safe passage of people who want to.
Okay, now there is, some kind of confusion with regards to what was said yesterday. Does that leave purely, how is this particular, decision of staying with the 31st deadline taken in Kabul? One. Secondly, if people have full travel documents, that is Afghan people in Afghanistan wanting to leave Afghanistan, if they have travel documents, will that still hold? Because this is going to, this particular line that Biden has taken is surely going to, unravel or, unruffle many feathers in Kabul.
We'll have to see, how things pan out, because it's like still too early to say of, how much repatriation is still, pending, and how many more evacuees are still to be evacuated from there. But definitely this kind of time frame, given,
okay,
the 31st of August and the huge number of people who have been already evacuated, that still means there's still a substantial number of people still, at the airport wanting to get in, wanting to actually, get evacuated from there. But, we have seen images of people clutching their documents. Many of them even don't have the documents and still want, to have a chance at, leaving Kabul from that airport. So definitely, given this time frame and given the Taliban trying to say that, we are not going to be allowing the, Afghan citizens, you can take the American nationals, and we will not be allowing the Afghan citizens to leave. So, US is not only, or the other countries for that matter, not only trying to evacuate their own nationals, but are also trying to evacuate the people who have been, backing them since the past 2 decades. So, we'll have to see how things pan out closer to the deadline. Then only we'll be able to understand how things unfold, because this would escalate very quickly at that point.
Yes. All right, Meghna, thank you so much for joining us with those inputs. That was our correspondent Meghna telling us more about the several discussions on different platforms that are happening across the world when we talk of the situation unfolding in Afghanistan.
Well, exactly. The situation very much on ground zero, fluid, and US President Joe Biden said that US is on pace to meet a 31st August deadline for evacuations despite previous calls from allies for an extension. In a televised address after the G7 meeting, Joe Biden said that Taliban must not disrupt US operations or access to Kabul airport for the deadline to be met. He recognized the success of the mission will largely depend on cooperation from the Taliban. Joe Biden has asked the Pentagon to prepare a contingency plan should an extension become necessary.
First, on evacuation, we agreed that we will continue to our close cooperation to get people out as efficiently and safely as possible. We are currently on a pace to finish by August the 31st. The sooner we can finish, the better. Each day of operations brings added risk to our troops, but the completion by August 31st depends upon the Taliban continuing to cooperate and allow access to the airport for those who we're transporting out and no disruptions to our operations. In addition, I've asked the Pentagon and the State Department for contingency plans to adjust the timetable should that become necessary.
US President has faced political pressure to extend the withdrawal deadline from US allies in Europe, such as the United Kingdom, as well as from his own party in Washington. However, Biden made it clear that he believes that the sooner the US can finish the evacuation operation, the better. Biden said that the airlift had to come to an end soon because of an increasing threat from the Islamic State group in Afghanistan.
I'm also mindful of the increasing risks that I've been briefed on, and the need to factor those risks in. They're real and significant challenges that we also have to take into consideration. The longer we stay, starting with the acute and growing risk of an attack by a terrorist group known as ISIS-K, an ISIS affiliate in Afghanistan, which is a sworn enemy of the Taliban as well. Every day we're on the ground is another day we know that ISIS-K is seeking to target the airport and attack both U.S. and allied forces and innocent civilians.
Well, Biden said that U.S. is working with its allies in the G7 to present a united approach to the Taliban that holds them accountable for their actions.
The G7 leaders and the leaders of the EU, NATO, and the UN all agreed that we will stand united in our approach to the Taliban. We agreed the legitimacy of any future government depends on the approach it now takes to uphold international obligations, including to prevent Afghanistan from being used as a base for terrorism. And we agreed that none of us are going to take the Taliban's word for it. We'll judge them by their actions, and we'll stay in close coordination on any steps that we take moving forward in response to the Taliban's behavior.
The European Union, meanwhile, called on Taliban to allow free passage for those trying to reach Kabul airport and on the US to secure the airport as long as necessary to allow the departure of all those entitled to evacuation. Speaking at a news conference after partaking in a G7 summit on Afghanistan, European Council President Charles Michel said that the European Union would continue to advocate democracy and human rights in the world beyond the end of the Western military mission in Afghanistan.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen told media that most European Union staff based in Afghanistan, including Afghans, had been evacuated from Kabul airport. She said the G7 leaders agreed it was their moral duty to help the Afghan people following the Taliban's return to power in Afghanistan.
After the G7 emergency summit, German Chancellor Angela Merkel announced a financial lifeline worth a total of $600 million to Afghanistan. Addressing media, the German Chancellor said that the aid will be provided through UN institutions. Merkel further said that Germany would cooperate with neighboring countries like Iran and Pakistan on the resettlement of Afghan refugees.
Meanwhile, the evacuation process of Americans and tens of thousands of others from Afghanistan's capital is accelerating. Around 6,000 US soldiers and more than 1,000 from UK are at Kabul airport to secure it and organize the evacuation of foreigners and eligible Afghans. Smaller contingents from other NATO members, including France, Germany and Turkey, are also present. Talking to media, the UK Prime Minister said 9,000 people have been taken out of Kabul by UK alone.
is an extraordinary airlift. We've evacuated 9,000. The UK alone has taken 9,000 people out of Kabul. I think 57 flights. Huge effort by our military, and we will go on right up until the last moment that we can. We're confident we can get thousands more out, but the situation at the airport is not getting any better. There are public order issues. There are harrowing scenes for those who are trying to get out, and it's tough for our military as well.
U.S. President Joe Biden said that over 70,000 people have been evacuated by the United States since August 14.
We've helped evacuate 70,700 people just since August the 14th, 75,900 people since the end of July. Just in the past 12 hours, another 19 U.S. military flights, 18 C-17s and 1 C-130 carrying approximately 6,400 evacuees, and 31 coalition flights carrying 5,600 people have left Kabul.
Meanwhile, Germany and other nations are also working at full capacity to get as many people out of Afghanistan as possible before the August 31st deadline. In Germany's US Ramstein Air Base, 7,000 evacuees have been flown in. The base has capacity for 12,000 and is offering first aid, food and water and care to refugees coming in from Kabul. So far, 37 planes have landed at Ramstein. From there, the evacuees are being taken to further locations by civilian aircraft. On Tuesday, 700 evacuees were relocated from the US base.
People coming off the aircraft appear to be extremely resilient. They're very happy to be here on German soil. They seem to be very appreciative and actually in very good spirits, which, considering everything they've been through in the past week or so, is really great to see.
To enter the Kabul airport, it's very hard because outside of the airport are Taliban. Okay, the Taliban are beating them and they are firing on them. They are killing them, and it's very hard to enter to the airport. Yes. And also there is no one can support them to bring them to the airport.
All the people's afraid of from this situation of Afghanistan, especially the ladies. The ladies are too worried about their futures. They can't study, they can't work, they can't do anywhere. They can't go out of their rooms. They can't go out of their houses.
Meanwhile, Spanish soldiers were also seen helping Afghan refugees get into Kabul airport. Footage filmed on a chest cam of a Spanish soldier shows people wearing red clothing to draw the attention of the Spanish military before running and seeking help to get into the airport. More than 1,100 refugees have landed in Spain since last week when the Taliban took power in Afghanistan.
Well, amid the evacuation process, the US military has released images and videos of soldiers interacting and playing with Afghan children at the Hamid Karzai International Airport. The children were waiting to be evacuated.
United Nations Human Rights Council held its 31st special session on Tuesday on the serious human rights concerns and also the situation in Afghanistan, while the Afghan ambassador to the UN in Geneva, appointed under the now collapsed government of ex-President Ashraf Ghani, called for stronger action to protect human rights. The UN Human Rights Chief called for a dedicated mechanism to closely monitor the evolving human rights situation, including Taliban's implementation of its promises. And India asserted that the dispensation in Afghanistan must be inclusive and broad-based, underlining the need to ensure that Afghanistan's territory is not used by terrorist groups such as Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed to threaten any other country. India also voiced concern over the unfolding humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, pointing to acute shortage of food, medical care and shelter, and hampering of basic rights to free speech, access to education and healthcare for the civilians, children and women in Afghanistan.
Voices of Afghan women, aspirations of Afghan children and the rights of minorities must be respected. Stability in Afghanistan is essential for peace and security in the region. We hope that the territory of Afghanistan is not allowed to be used by terrorist groups such as Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed. We, the international community, must extend full support to the people of Afghanistan in their desire for peace, stability and security, and enable all Afghans to live in peace and dignity. Thank you, Madam President.
Well, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval on Tuesday hosted the 11th meeting of the BRICS NSA. Tuesday's meeting reviewed the regional and global political and security scenario with particular reference to current developments in Afghanistan, Iran, West Asia and the Gulf and emerging threats to national security such as cyber security. India raised the issue of cross-border terrorism and activities of groups such as Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, which enjoy state support and threaten peace and security in the region. The meetings have emerged as an important platform for exchange of views on political and security issues among BRICS nations.
India continues to press ahead with Operation Devi Shakti, its evacuation mission from Afghanistan. A total of 626 people, including 228 Indian citizens, have been evacuated from Afghanistan till now. India has also assured the safe evacuation of 3 copies of the Holy Scripture of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji on the flight. The copies of the scripture were received by Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri.
Devotion and dedication to the word of the Guru. A batch of 78 people reached India from Kabul via Dushanbe this morning. 25 Indians were a part of this group. 3 old handwritten sarups of the Holy Guru Granth Sahib also landed safely at the Delhi airport. Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri received the evacuees at the Delhi airport in keeping with the spirit of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. Amid chanting of Satnam Vaheguru, he also received the swarup of Guru Granth Sahib with great reverence. As per the Sikh religious code of conduct, he carried the Granth Sahib on his head walking bare feet. He was accompanied by the Minister of State for External Affairs V. Muralidharan and BJP leader R.P. Singh, who too carried the 3 copies of the Holy Granth in a similar fashion. Hardeep Singh Puri also gave an assurance that India was with the Afghan people in the face of adversity.
It was personally a very emotional and moving experience for me as a Sikh to be able to pay obeisance. 13 स्वरूप गुरु ग्रंथ साहिब जी के थे, 7 मुझे लगता है पहले आ गए थे और 3 आज. I had the privilege of being associated with the ceremony.
All 3 copies of Sri Guru Granth Sahib brought from Kabul have reached Guru Arjan Dev Ji Gurudwara in Mahavir Nagar. Minorities in Afghanistan have been a target since the rise of the Taliban. Out of the total 13 copies present in Afghanistan, 10 copies of the Holy Guru Granth Sahib have been brought to India so far. 7 copies arrived in the year 2020 when Har Rai Sahib Gurudwara in Afghanistan was attacked in the month of March. Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri said that Sikhism has existed in Afghanistan since the 16th century, but the situation has deteriorated since then, making the life of the local Sikhs difficult. The Union Minister reiterated that the Citizenship Amendment Act was formulated keeping in mind such circumstances so that the interest of minority Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Parsis living in India's neighboring countries could be protected on the basis of humanity.
This is a sentiment. आप देखते हैं कि हमारे बगल वाले देशों में नेबरहुड में कुछ माइनॉरिटीज which were being persecuted, उनकी क्या दिशा थी? Now Mother India will always have the hands full. इसके ये नहीं कि हम X या Y कम्युनिटी के, हम सबको लेते हैं.
India has so far safely evacuated 626 people from Afghanistan under Operation Devi Shakti. Among them, 77 are Afghan Sikhs. Apart from the embassy staff, 228 people are Indian nationals. The rest of the people are Afghan citizens. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now shifting to news back home, Union Cabinet Minister Narayan Rane was granted bail by the Mahad Magistrate Court in connection with his alleged statement against Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray. While granting bail, the court has put 3 conditions, including asking him to appear before the Raigad Crime Branch on the 31st of August and 13th of September. Rane has also been asked by the court to refrain from passing such comments in the future. The court has also directed police that if they want voice samples, then they have to give advance notice to Union Minister Narayan Rane. Though Narayan Rane has got some respite, it remains to be seen the action of Pune and Nasik police as separate cases have been lodged under their jurisdiction, and they may also arrest Narayan Rane in these cases. Well, for more on the story, we've got Shishir standing by to give us an update. Shishir, clearly, detaining a union minister, clearly, out of the box, but how would you say, were all legal options, first of all, exhausted for such a decision to be taken by the police?
Well, absolutely, we'll come to that point later on, but let me first tell you that how exactly this entire incident happened yesterday when the Narayan Rane was on his Janashidhar Yatra in Ratnagiri district. Well, day before yesterday, Narayan Rane started the second leg of his Janashidhar Yatra from Konkan region. The first stop was in Raigad district. In Raigad district, he made some comments against Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray, and then he moved on to the neighboring district, that is Ratnagiri district. In Ratnagiri district also yesterday, he had a full packed schedule for the entire day. He was attending various public rallies here. Meanwhile, while addressing public rally, the local police reached the spot and took him into custody. Well, that wasn't shown as an arrest. He was taken into custody and was reached to the nearest police station. He was asking about the papers, but the police were failed to show him any paper. Later on, the police produced him to the Mahad district court here. That is again, they have to come back to the Raigad district here. At around 9 o'clock, around 8:30 to 9 o'clock, he reached Mahad. The police arrested him and then immediately taken them to the magistrate court here. If you look at the entire procedure, almost for 2 hours the procedure went. Narayan Rane was sitting there, heard the entire bail plea applications filed by him. The court have made some points here while arguing this, while listening to this case here. The government have said that, the police have said that they wanted a 7-day police custody. The court has refused it, and the court finally granted him a judicial custody, after which a bail application was moved in and bail application was granted to Narayan Rane. Currently, Narayan Rane is in Mumbai, but the court have given some terms and conditions to Narayan Rane to fulfill here. First of all, he has to present at the Superintendent of Police Office in Raigad district on 30th August and 30th September. The court have also said that they should refrain from passing such comments here. And if police wanted a voice sample, then they have to produce a 7-day notice to them. Obviously, these are the terms put by the court here. Now, of course, that why exactly this thing happens here? Well, if you look at the BJP perspective, they said that it's a political vendetta completely, and that's the reason the government have taken this action. There could be another way also. But in spite of that, the government was quite harsh, and especially the police was quite harsh on Union Minister Narayan Rane. That was the comments made by the BJP here. BJP also made it quite clear that even though the government have taken action, the police have taken action, and now Narayan Rane is on bail plea, they will continue with the Jan Ashirwad Yatra in the next couple of days. Narayan Rane will be a part of Jan Ashirwad Yatra from Konkan, because Konkan is a base of Narayan Rane, and that's the reason it seems that BJP want to again start the Jan Ashirwad Yatra in Konkan region, which was left there. So obviously, after 2 days, probably that's what we heard from the BJP. The BJP will again start the Jan Ashirwad Yatra from the Konkan region, Ratnagiri and.
I think there is a problem with the connection there. We've lost contact with Shishir. We'll try getting back to him again as he was spelling out more details on that development. Meanwhile, let's turn focus to other updates. Let's get you updates related to COVID now.
Yes, vaccines there very much. The country's first mRNA-based COVID vaccine has been found to be safe and was given a go-ahead for phase 2 and phase 3 trials. Genova Biopharmaceuticals, the Pune-based biotechnology company working on the nation's first mRNA-based COVID vaccine, submitted the interim clinical data of the phase 1 study to the Central Drug Standard Control Organization. The Ministry of Science and Technology said in a statement that Vaccine Subject Expert Committee reviewed the interim phase 1 data and found that HGCO19 was safe, tolerable and immunogenic in the participants of the study. The study will be conducted in India at approximately 10 to 15 sites in phase 2 and 22 to 27 sites in phase 3. Genoa plans to use DBT ICMR clinical trial network sites for this study.
India also continues to cross milestones as far as the vaccination drive is concerned. 59.47 crore vaccine doses have already been administered so far under the nationwide vaccination drive. Out of this, more than 54.67 lakh people were vaccinated in the last 24 hours. The vaccination exercise is a tool to protect the most vulnerable population groups in the country from COVID-19, and it continues to be regularly reviewed and monitored at the highest level.
The Union Health Ministry's National Telemedicine Service, or eSanjeevani, has conducted more than 1 crore teleconsultations across India. eSanjeevani has been used by the public in 701 districts across India, and over 56% of the patients on eSanjeevani are females. Of the 1 crore patients served by eSanjeevani, around 0.5% are 80 years and older, and around 18% are 20 years or younger, the ministry said in the statement. eSanjeevani has been quickly adopted by patients, doctors and specialists across the country, and it's evident from the fact that it has shown astounding growth by over 1000% in the last 10 months. The top 3 states which have registered highest consultations through eSanjeevani and eSanjeevani OPD platforms are southern states of Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. Notably, that even when the internet penetration in the country is below 50%, this innovative digital health initiative of the Health Ministry has been able to defeat the tyranny of geography, distance and time, and establish itself as a parallel stream of healthcare services delivery.
And schools continue to open in many parts of the country as cases remain low. In Tripura, schools reopened from today for classes 6 to 12 with the mandated SOPs that need to be followed. Tripura colleges, including all degree, technical and professional colleges and hostels, have also been reopened from today. The state government has said that colleges can adopt any mode of teaching that suits them. In Telangana, all schools, Anganwadi centers and other education institutions will reopen from September 1st. Chief Minister K. Chandrasekhar Rao says that schools will reopen amid strict COVID protocols and precautions, including wearing of masks, sanitization, social distancing, among others. Schools have been shut since mid-March and the classes were held online.
Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change Bhupendra Yadav on Tuesday held a telephonic conversation with US Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, John Kerry, during which he expressed commitment to work with US on clean energy. Both the leaders discussed climate action and finance mobilization dialogue track under the India-US Climate and Clean Energy Agenda 2030 partnership and other related issues. Both sides agreed that India and the US will engage for a constructive engagement under the India-US Climate and Clean Energy Agenda 2030 partnership. The Environment Minister stated that these platforms provide greater opportunities for working together for climate actions. John Kerry mentioned about the launch of Climate Action and Finance Mobilization Dialogue as a part of the India-US Climate and Clean Energy Agenda 2030 partnership to enhance actions in the current decade to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. John Kerry is likely to visit India in the month of September to further India-US partnership on clean energy.
And India's glorious freedom struggle is one of the greatest movements of the modern world which the world has witnessed. The Indian independence movement was a series of historic events with the ultimate aim of ending British rule in India. DD India brings you a glimpse of that struggle every day, and today's episode of Saga of Freedom focuses on Subhash Chandra Bose and Ganpati Agraharam Anadurai Iyer Nathesan. Take a look.
In 1943, Subhash Chandra Bose became the Supreme Commander of the Indian National Army, INA, or Azad Hind Fauj. The INA was formed in September 1942 by Ras Bihari Bose in Southeast Asia during the World War II with the purpose of an armed fight for India's independence, but soon it was disbanded. It was revived under the leadership of Subhash Chandra Bose after his arrival in Southeast Asia in 1943. It was in early 1943 that Bose recognized that Southeast Asia, with its large overseas Indian population, was the fertile ground for establishing an anti-colonial force to fight the British.
मैं इस जिम्मेदारी को कबूल करता हूं, लेकिन निहायत नम्रता के साथ और खुदा से दुआ मांगता हूं कि उन्होंने हमें वो ताकत, वो जोश और वो बहादुरी दें.
In January 1943, the Japanese invited Bose to lead the Indian nationalist movement in East Asia.
旧インド仮政府師範スバス・チャンドラ・ボース氏は空路ビルマに到着。日本と共にアジア解放の戦いに駒を進める。
Subhash Chandra Bose was one of India's most prominent nationalist leaders who advocated armed struggle as the only way to free India.
I do not know how many of us who are going to participate in the coming battle will survive to see India free. But whether we survive or not, whether we individually live to see India free or not, we are confident that India shall be free.
Netaji named the brigades of INA after Gandhi, Nehru, Maulana Azad and himself. There was also an all-women regiment named after Rani of Jhansi, Lakshmi Bai. Under his leadership, the INA drew ex-prisoners and thousands of civilian volunteers from the Indian expatriate population in Southeast Asia. The armed resistance of INA and their sacrifices are etched in people's memory forever.
August is also important in the history of the Indian freedom struggle because it is the birth anniversary of the famous freedom fighter Ganapati Agraharam Annadurai Ayyar Natesan. He was born in 1873 in Tanjavur. In 1900, he started the Indian Review, a monthly publication in English. The paper covered mostly nationalistic themes. When Mahatma Gandhi visited Madras for the first time since his arrival in India in 1915, he stayed at Natesan's house for almost a month. G.A. Natesan, who was a prolific writer and a journalist, established his own publishing company in 1897. He was a well-known publisher of Gandhian literature, including speeches and writings of Bapu.
Alright, up next we turn focus to all the international updates in our segment Across the Globe.
Well, let's now take a look at updates on COVID-19 from across the globe. So far, more than 21 crore 39 lakh people world over have been infected by coronavirus. Meanwhile, over 19 crore 14 lakh people have also recovered. The death toll now surging past 44 lakh 63,000. United States continues to be the worst affected, that's seeing a regular spike when it comes to infections and fatalities. In terms of infections, over 3 crore 89 lakh infections in United States, while the fatalities numbers now slowly inching towards the 6.5 lakh mark. At this point of time, as we speak, over 6 lakh 48,000.
With the research on the COVID-19 cases in the United States, nation's top infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, on Tuesday said that the U.S. could get the pandemic under control by early next year if vaccinations are ramped up. He also said that full FDA's approval for Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine paves the way for more people to get inoculated, with potential approval for Moderna's vaccine in the coming weeks and also authorization for younger children by autumn. The US health officials have noted that the number of inoculations has also risen in the recent weeks and say that they hope Monday's FDA action spurs more people to get their first shots.
I would like to appeal to this country, to the people in the country who are not vaccinated, to realize that we have the capability among ourselves to essentially cut down the time frame to getting the end of this pandemic very, very clearly. Get vaccinated and the time frame will be truncated dramatically.
Israel on Tuesday expanded its COVID-19 vaccine booster shots to those over 30 years of age. A statement from the country's health ministry said its decision to lower the age of eligibility for a third dose of Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine from 40 to 30 followed a recommendation of the advising experts and its epidemiology task force and vaccine committee. Boosters are administered to people who have received their second dose at least 5 months ago. Well, after...
All right, let's get to the next segment. That's Web News Review, and our correspondent joins us every day to let us know what all has been put forth in the social media platforms.
Well, we've got Abhishek standing by. Abhishek, good morning. Take it over.
Morning, Anil, and morning, Kriti. The news that I'm going to do from the Harvard section is first is from the Indian Express. Where US President Joe Biden has still reaffirmed his commitment that USA forces would be leaving Afghanistan by the 1st of this month. We know that the Kabul has fallen on 15th of August, and there were discussions whether US would be extending its deadline beyond 31st of August because of the number of people wanted to leave Kabul. But now again, US President is going to stick with its deadline, which was set well before the Kabul has fallen. Now, the next newspaper is the Hindu, where there is a Supreme Court judgment that has been highlighted, which says that economic criterion not sole basis for creamy layer, the Supreme Court has said. The Supreme Court in its observation has said that social advancement, higher employment in government services, etc., play an equal role in deciding whether such a person belongs to the creamy layer and cannot be denied quota benefits instead. And the person belonging to backward community solely on the ground that he or she is rich cannot be the basis for deciding whether he or she there's a reservation. Next newspaper is the Times of India, where coronavirus update is there, and WHO's chief scientist has said that India may be entering some kind of stage of endemicity, which comes after a lot of, we have spent a number of days where COVID cases have been sustained at a level which is well below the crisis level that we had seen a few months back. However, Kerala, the state, is still at a very alarming level of number of COVID cases, where post-COVID, post-Unam, almost 25,000 cases of COVID are being reported. This newspaper is Hindustan Times, where Himachal Pradesh government has decided that schools will be closed till September 4th. The education minister of the state has said this. He's also said that the government is going to open vacancy for filling up of 4,000 posts of different categories of teachers. So this is all from the web section of news updates, and for further updates, we'll be back to Preeti and Anil.
All right, Abhishek, thank you for joining in with that web news review this morning. And let's turn focus to business updates in our segment BizBuzz.
Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, who is on a two-day visit to Mumbai, will today chair the annual review of performance of public sector banks with the heads of PSU banks. The Finance Minister will also launch EASE 4.0, that is Enhanced Access and Service Excellence. EASE is a common reform agenda for public sector banks aimed at institutionalizing a clean and smart banking. Its first edition, EASE 1.0, was launched in January 2018. Yesterday, the Finance Minister held important meetings with the senior officers of the Income Tax Department and officers of the GST and Customs Department too. Revenue Secretary, Central Board of Direct Taxes Chairman, Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs Chairman were also present in the meeting. Later in the evening, the Finance Minister also met with industry leaders at an event organized by the Confederation of Indian Industry, that's CII.
And up next, Sports Track.
Well, Team India has gained the psychological edge by winning the second test against England. Going forward, the third test will now be played at Headingley from today, and India lead the 5-match test series 1-0.
The third test between India and England is to be played at Headingley from 25th of August. Team India has already taken a 1-0 lead in the 5-match series by winning the second test, whereas the first test match was a draw. Going forward, Virat Kohli's team would like to retain Headingley's record, as the team has not lost any match at this venue since past 54 years. If Team India wins the third test, then the team will not lose any series so far. Whereas in the 5-match series played in England in the year 2018, India were defeated by 1-4. Whereas in the match played for 628 runs for 8 wickets while playing first. After this, Captain Sourav Ganguly declared the innings. Sachin Tendulkar, Rahul Dravid and Sourav Ganguly all three scored centuries in the match. Sachin scored 193, Dravid scored 148 and Ganguly scored 128 runs. Apart from this, Sanjay Bangar also scored 68 runs. Fast bowler Andy Caddick took 3 wickets. The English team under the captaincy of Nasir Hussain could only score 273 runs in the first innings. Stewart scored the highest with 78. Leg spinner Anil Kumble and off-spinner Harbhajan Singh took 3 wickets each. The English team could not do much in the second innings as well and could only score 309 runs. Nasir Hussain scored 110 runs while Kumble took 4 wickets. However, no player of the current team, including Team India's captain Virat Kohli, has played a test match at Headingley Stadium so far. In such a situation, the third test match is going to be even more challenging for all Indian players. Team India was also close to victory in the first test played in Nottingham, but the last day's play could not be played due to rain. With just 1 win away, Virat Kohli will also become the Indian captain with most number of test wins with this in England by winning 1 more test. Sports Desk, DD India.
India's para-table tennis player Sonalben Patel loses against 2-time Paralympic medalist China's Li Qian by 2-3 in the opening game of Class 3 event in women's table tennis at the Tokyo Paralympics. India's Sonalben Manubhai Patel lost to China's Li Qian in women's Class 3 category in a tightly fought match by 11-9, 3-11, 17-15, 7-11 and 4-11. Sonal was ahead after the first 3 games but could not keep the tempo going in the last 2 games and lost her first match to a better ranked Li Qian. Sonal will play her next group match tomorrow.
In another match, world number 8, India's Bhavina Patel will play against China's Zhao Ying in a short while from now. Zhao Ying is a 2-time Paralympic champion at the 2008 Beijing and 2012 London Games. While Bhavina Patel, placed in Group A of the Class 4 event, has 28 medals to her name.
And up next, our health segment to make sure that you remain in good health and spirits.
Well, kidney stones is a common problem that affects many people. Let's find out what are the effective ways that can help to reduce the risk of kidney stones.
Kidney stones are quite common in the Indian population. What are the causes and what can be done to prevent the problem? To talk about this, we have with us Dr. Amlesh Seth. How common is the problem of kidney stones?
The northern part where we are living, this is called the stone belt. Almost 1 in 10 persons would face the problem of having either passed a small stone or having had pain because of stone disease, or maybe a bigger stone causing significant damage to the kidney, or sometimes multiple stones, or sometimes bilateral stones leading to significant kidney damage.
Dr. Seth, what can be done to reduce the risk of stone formation in the kidneys?
We should target a urine output of between 1.5 to 2 liters in 24 hours. Generally during winter months this target is achieved, but during summer months we do not increase our fluid intake to achieve that target. So whenever a person is at home for 24 hours or more, at least one time or sometime one should try to estimate the amount of urine that a person is passing, and if the urine output is less than 1.5 liters, then the person should increase the fluid intake to achieve this target. The diets that lead to increased calcium in the urine is excessive amount of milk and milk products, lots of nuts. The diets that increase the oxalate intake are berries, tomatoes, spinach, green leafy vegetables. So one should take these items in small amounts and as mixture of items. So if one is taking say palak with a little bit of curd, the calcium in curd and the oxalate in palak will get balanced out. Excess consumption of non-vegetarian diet, meat and meat products also increases the risk of stone disease, and even these things, they do have a good amount of protein, but they should also be consumed in small quantities.
It is said that once a stone former is always a stone former. What can be done to reduce the risk?
A person who has had one stone episode is definitely at a high risk of having another stone episode. The fluid intake in a stone former has to be higher than the fluid intake in the normal population. The amount of urine output that a stone former should target is between 2.5 to 3 liters. So the person should increase the fluid intake mainly in the form of water, but lemon juice, a little bit of lemon has also been shown to reduce the risk of stone disease. If the fluid intake is good, then even if a small stone of 2 or 3 millimeters is formed, then the chance of spontaneous passage with increased fluid intake are high.
Thank you, Dr. Seth, for talking to us. Lifestyle modification and taking certain precautions can help to reduce the risk of kidney stones. But if you are having a kidney stone, do get it treated appropriately. Kiran Bhardwaj, DD News.
Alright, so that was the health tip of the day, how to take care of your kidneys.
Well, exactly. You know, we are at the fag end of this edition of Breakfast News, but remember that fight against COVID-19 continues. So do not drop your guard. Follow the 3 simple steps. SMS. Sanitize yourself, mask yourself, maintain social distancing at all times, and the vaccination drive in India, as we mentioned earlier, is picking up pace. So if you have not got yourself vaccinated, please jump up, get that jab done, because if you get that jab done, you and I stand a better chance to see a better tomorrow with our loved ones.
Yes, indeed. On that note, we end this edition of Breakfast News. But before we go, we're leaving you with some beautiful glimpses from Greece, where museums and archaeological sites were opened late over the weekend for the public to enjoy August full Sturgeon month. Take a look. Have a good day ahead. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.